Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Psychedelic Podcast. Today we have Mariah Gannessa, the CEO and founder of Four Visions, a platform dedicated to bridging Amazonian healing traditions with the modern world. Mariah is a plant medicine practitioner, spiritual educator. She was born and raised in Northern California, but now resides in San Mateo, Costa Rica. And over the past decade, Mariah has immersed herself in the healing cultures of the Amazon, apprenticing under respected elders such as Taita Juanito, and her work emphasizes sacred reciprocity, ensuring that indigenous communities benefit directly from partnerships through commerce, donations, and charitable initiatives. Mariah, it's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm really happy to be here.
So I'd love to start with your journey because it's an interesting one. And your journey has taken you from Northern California to the heart of the Amazon and now to the jungles of Costa Rica. And I'm curious if we could just start with a moment when the rainforest spirit deeply resonated with you, perhaps altering your life's trajectory.
Definitely. Well, if we want to start with the moment, it would have been the moment when I chose to enter into what I didn't know at the time would be a over decade-long apprenticeship with my teacher to this day, Taita Juanito. And there was a lot that led up to that moment, but I was, 18 years old and in Colombia. Found myself there through various synchronicities, searching actually for a teacher, a guide, someone to really take me deeper into the spiritual studies of plant medicine. I had already started forming a relationship with plant allies and plant medicines at that time, and I had received the clarity at that point that I really wanted to deepen my studies. But I didn't know where to begin and who that was going to be with. So the really key moment was when that very intimate connection happened between me and my teacher, Taita Juanito, his lineage, the Ingano people, and his culture, and the medicine of the Yahé. It was kind of a commitment that I made and a very profound opening that radically changed the course of my life in countless ways, and really, opened my life to a direction that, for the entirety of my life up until that point, I could have never even imagined in my wildest dreams. And so that really was a key turning point for me in my journey.
So in this time that you've spent, I mean, you're continuing to study with Taita Juanito, but especially in the early days of moving to Colombia and moving to the Amazon and apprenticing in Putumayo, what cultural or spiritual lesson maybe challenged your previous beliefs and led to a profound personal transformation?
I've received so much from working with indigenous traditions and with the Inga people. And one thing that really, radically transformed, challenged, and allowed me to deconstruct my conditioning and my belief system was the very strong differences that in the way that our culture, Western society, views and interacts with life versus the way that indigenous cultures and indigenous traditions interact and view life and the relationship of humanity with nature. For me, growing up in the West, nature was, in a lot of ways a resource, in a lot of ways, a valued resource. For me, I grew up in California. We love our nature. But it was always something to be enjoyed, right? And so there was never that deeper connection of reciprocity and relationship. And so my work with the indigenous traditions and the wisdom keepers that I have had the profound honor to spend time with and study, if I was to pinpoint one integral, foundational learning and teaching and lesson that I continue to deepen in. That study of a relationship with nature is so profound, has so many layers, and continues to unfold deeper and deeper. It's how we can transform that perspective from the extraction of resources or the what can nature do for me, to this relationship of exchange of energy, of healing, of giving and receiving, and the infinite amount of codes that exist to better understand what this experience is in this earth, on this planet, as we deepen our relationship with the earth and nature.
And that's a great segue into Four Visions. And I'd love to spend have you spend a little bit of time just providing some context. What is Four Visions, and how does it honor this deep, reverent connection to the natural world?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my journey to start Four Visions was very much integrally connected to my own personal healing journey as I began my apprenticeship and began learning and studying. I started going on a profound healing journey, a personal healing journey first, understanding myself, and then, over time, starting to learn how to treat patients and how to work with the botanical plant therapies and the healing tools of the culture to treat and to help other people as well. And so that process was so eye-opening for me and so fascinating for me. I really started to see from a personal firsthand experience, and then also as I got to come into contact with hundreds of people over the course of my apprenticeship over the years, how incredibly impactful working with plants and plant tools and learning how to integrate the wisdom of plants into our daily practices can really be for the mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And so the inspiration for Four Visions was really born out of gratitude. That's really what sparked the initial seeds for the platform that has become and grown into what it is today. I really didn't know what I was setting out to create. It really kind of all unfolded very organically, really coming from that place of deep, deep gratitude for everything I was receiving and this inspiration within my heart to find a way where I could give back to the tribes and to the families that were really taking me in and welcoming me into their family. It was so beautiful, the love and the support and just the open generosity that I was receiving. And so originally, Four Visions was kind of the vision behind the initiative came from, like I said, my relationship with Taita and his tribe, the Inga. And it started with the idea of sharing their beadwork jewelry, their ceremonial jewelry. So right now we're a plant medicine company, but at the beginning we did do a lot of one-of-a-kind ceremonial art and jewelry. And so I just thought I could, buy some of that jewelry, bring it back to California and, gift it, share it with my friends and family. And it could be a way to, just express my thanks and gratitude. When I got back from that first trip, I was really shocked with just the amount of interest in the tools that I had brought back. And that was when I first realized, wow, there's something here. There could actually be a way for me to have a lot greater impact. And this was, this was more than 10 years ago. So the landscape of, plant medicine and the knowledge and access was a lot different. So these beautiful handmade, one-of-a-kind pieces of prayer jewelry really, was just drew the attention of a lot of people. They could feel the potency in it, and they were immediately drawn to it. And so that's kind of how the beginnings of this sharing model took place. And little by little, we started expanding our partnerships with other indigenous communities. And today we work with about 15 different indigenous communities and teams of medicine makers in different regions from Brazil, Colombia, Peru, Guatemala, and Mexico. And so that original model that's sparked from my relationship with Taita really was able to be expanded, and the alliances with other communities really grew. And so this is kind of how we got started, and it was a beautiful journey of listening. Even the name Four Visions, which a lot of people don't know, but it refers to the one of the foundational belief systems and architecture of the Ingano culture. So the four visions refer to the four types of experiences that we can have with the Yahé, and really with all plant medicines and psychedelics. So it's very translatable. The first vision is the vision of seeing, which we typically regard as like the seeing of geometrical shapes or animal totems, or getting clear download of what's to come, seeing our guardians or our ancestors come and visit us. And that's the vision of celestial vision. The second vision is the vision of celestial counsel. So that's when we receive guidance, or receive a clear message and a download for our lives, and receive that clarity. The third vision is the celestial surgery. So that's when the celestial surgeons come and heal our physical body, release trauma or stagnant memories that have been stored in the organs or in different parts of the physical body. And that's when we might feel like the pressure on a plant medicine or psychedelic journey, or we might feel vibration or even pain. Whenever we're feeling pain in the physical body during a ceremony, the Yahé, for the Yahé culture, that's the celestial surgery. And then the fourth vision is considered the most sacred experience that we can have with the Yahé. And this is the vision of returning to origin. And so in this experience, it's perhaps the most misunderstood, or not fully comprehensible for a lot of people in the psychedelic space, but because it's often called the experience of no vision, the nothing, when nothing happens. And a lot of times people think, oh, it didn't work for me. But for the Inga, this experience is the most sacred and the most profound, because they say that in the fourth vision, this returning to origin, the medicine travels all the way back to the moment in time when your soul chose to incarnate in this lifetime and make that soul contract. And it heals your ancestral memory, all your entire bloodline, your ancestors, and it goes cleaning and healing all the memories up in your gestational memory during the time that we were in our mother's wombs, all the way up until that first breath of life that we took, the first inhale. And then it goes cleaning and organizing all of the memories of our childhood, all the way up through our lives into where we are today. And so this is a very profound experience that can happen with the medicines. And it's also often also spoken about as like a preparation experience, because there's cleaning that needs to be done before we can arrive at that next phase of understanding in our healing journey and of the other experiences that I just mentioned. But also this experience is very powerful because they say that what's happening is happening in another plane, and that's why we don't experience it in this plane, and that's why we don't remember anything, or we don't feel anything. And it's happening in another plane because we are existing in a lot of different worlds, not just this world. And sometimes we describe it like different body parts are existing in different dimensions or different worlds. And so we need to recollect all of that information about our cosmic DNA, and we need to integrate that information back to find our wholeness again, to find ourselves again in this world. And so when the medicine gives us that experience, it's because there is a information that is in other worlds that needs to be recovered for us to come back and to reconnect the threads and to find ourselves again. And so these four visions, we could spend the whole conversation talking about just the four visions. They're very esoteric and very profound. And I just thought I'd share that because, that's the foundation of our company. That's really, and I can talk more about it if you're interested, but every decision that we made, the entire way we structured and designed and created the brand and this sacred platform for sharing and reciprocity is really based on these 4 experiences and how we can invite these different methodologies of healing or these different healing experiences into our lives and into our consciousness. And so, our platform today is really a sharing of these different tools and different traditions and cultures. And we have many, many different plant medicines and ancient botanicals on our site that really will meet everyone wherever they're at. We really believe there's something for everyone within our product line, because whether, you're walking the plant medicine path and you're deeply immersed in it and you're going all in, or whether you're maybe just starting your alternative healing journey and are maybe just looking for some relief from physical symptoms and you're wanting to see what alternatives there are out there to Western medication, we have a pretty comprehensive offering that really seeks to be in service to this very unique time that we're living in today, this third wave, this awakening, that we're seeing on the planet at this time.
So celestial vision, celestial counsel, celestial surgery, and returning to the origin. This is a bit of a full circle for me. Many years ago, I was sharing this with you before we went live. I was at Rhythmia, which is a plant medicine retreat center in Costa Rica. It was really the first time I was in a container for ayahuasca and Yahé. And I remember one of the teachings there, they talked about it, I believe it was the nada. Is the framing that they used. And this is sort of the first time I'm hearing that framing again. And now I have a bit more context about where that comes from and what relevance that is. And I've even heard this in the stories of folks who have worked not only with ayahuasca, but other plant medicines. I was at a conference a few weeks ago, a psychedelic practitioner conference in Austin. I was talking with a gentleman, a vet who had recently experienced ibogaine. And he was talking about how, usually the experience with ibogaine can be really intense, really visual, quite overwhelming. And he said he just slept for 10 hours. But at the end of it, and in the week or two after, a lot of the physical symptoms that he had been struggling with were healed. And in healing a lot of those physical symptoms, he didn't get as transpersonal as the Inga would, but he talked about how that may have created a foundation. So as he deepens into this, then there will be more reflections or more visions or counsels or surgery. But it felt like initially that experience had to happen for him to just feel better and heal some of these physiological things that were going on for him.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
So it's a cool full circle. And that was going to be sort of the second question that I led us into, is this concept of sacred reciprocity, which you've hinted at. I don't know if you've explicitly named yet, but I'd love to hear, your take on that phrase. What does sacred reciprocity mean to you? What does it mean to Four Visions, and how does it influence your business decisions and relationships with indigenous communities?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Many of us in the West are experiencing a sense of emptiness when it comes to our own culture and our lineages. And this really has many causes, but primarily goes to the fact that we all have our own ancestral story of being taken from our homelands and stripped of the rituals and the traditions of our ancestors. And so many of us, depending on, what lineage we're from, are very disconnected to the ways in which our ancestors communed with nature and honored the sacred. Because of that, we're at this time with the parallel phenomenon of the awakening of consciousness that's taking place, where people are genuinely interested in getting to know themselves on a whole different level than generations before, expanding their consciousness, and really healing is becoming, a thing in a way that, even our parents' generation is like radically transformed. So because we're seeing this, very special expansion and development in our generation, and because so many of us find this emptiness in ourselves in relationship to our own culture, not even to mention like the American culture and what it's come to. Many of us are going outside of our homelands to resource ourselves with the tools and the information that we feel that we need to develop our spiritual journey and to find the answers to these big questions of why this 9-to-5 rat race that we were sold is just not fulfilling us. And really that question of is there more is like at the forefront of our consciousness as a society right now as we explore and really discover what else is out there. So in this process and in the psychedelic renaissance, or this, this time that we're living where the plant medicines and the psychedelics are like having this new wave and evolution and integration into our society too, there's been this interesting phenomenon where we find ourselves, and many people have unknowingly kind of fallen into that same trap of going and taking from another tradition and another culture because we just want the answers and we don't have them in our own toolkit at home. And so it's not to criticize that but just to shed light on that. And I wanted to just explain that a little bit because this idea of reciprocity is not to say that we shouldn't do that, because I believe that we're at a time in humanity's consciousness and evolution where we actually have to, we're so, our cups are so drained and we just frankly don't have the practices in our own culture that we need to enter into this exchange of information in order for that spark of consciousness to continue to grow and evolve and be tended to. But to be able to understand that there is very much an exchange and a relationship that we have to really tend to ensure that we don't repeat the the traumas of our colonial ancestors, really, And so this concept of sacred reciprocity really speaks to the desire and the intention of being in relationship with other cultures in a way that is in integrous, recognizing that they are not ours, but being able to receive and give back to them in a way that both nourishes the traditional peoples who are sharing their ancient wisdom with us to nourish our thirsty souls, and to also care for them and recognize that there can be good that comes from this relating if we do so in a way that honors the wisdom that they steward, that honors their connection with nature, and that seeks to care for them and to help them empower themselves to protect their traditions and their cultures in the way that they see fit. One thing I also always like to bring awareness to in that discussion of sacred reciprocity is that these practices of honoring earth and being in relationship with nature and revering the sacred and the prayer and song and upliftment and celebration, these practices are in our blood. They're universal. And we are all indigenous to the Earth Mother. And so if we go back to the beginning of, what I was sharing of like our original homelands, if we had access to that information, depending on our lineages, some of us do, some of us don't, but we would see that all of our first ancestors did have their practices and ways of connecting with life and walking in this path, in this way of communion. And so what we're doing in this sacred reciprocity is opening ourselves to remember the inherent wisdom that is within each of our hearts, that's there dormant, wanting to be woken up and remembered and reawakened. And so when we are in reciprocity with different traditions, it's really about acknowledgement, awareness, and a desire to walk in a good way. And when those become the primary intentions, the how becomes very clear, because there are always opportunities to give back, whether it be financially, whether it be through awareness with our platform, whether it be through volunteering our time. There's so many infinite ways to ensure that we can be in relationship rather than from that consumerist model of extraction and taking and taking and taking. And that's really, the foundation of the conversation of being in reciprocity, why we do it and what it means. Another aspect that's very important is that, these medicines hold power, and they hold power because of the original cultures who have stewarded them for thousands of years. And so if we are to utilize these medicines and we don't engage in those important reflections and action, then what we're doing is disrespecting the medicines themselves and disrespecting nature. And so it's really about coming back to that idea of, respect for this powerful work, the desire to walk the path, how beautiful it is that so many people are desiring to reconnect in these ways and really are looking for these methodologies to come back and to remember. And it's to continue doing that, but to do so through this lens of recognizing that we're connected. We're all connected, right? And so there's a lot weaving within the ley lines of what's happening for indigenous peoples during this process of the medicines coming out of the rainforest, of this huge, psychedelic renaissance. There's a lot happening within the context of indigenous cultures right now. And so to really be tending to that as well, and to be aware of what's going on there as well, so that when we're utilizing these medicines that, have traveled so far to be with us, or perhaps that we even just have access to go to a ceremony, or to experience these practices and traditions, to be in that place of reverence and acknowledgement and reciprocity.
I think another element of this, and you hinted at this in this context around sacred reciprocity, is also cultural appropriation, and that's been a hotter topic, especially for us in the West. The sort of neo-shamanic archetype, someone who goes and drinks ayahuasca, for a week or maybe even for a few weeks, and comes back and wants to serve medicine. And as a human species, we're always looking to adapt and integrate and share, and yet there is something in the topic of cultural appropriation that I think is relevant and important when we're working with these indigenous medicines that have been stewarded sometimes for thousands of years by a particular tribe or a particular location or by a particular lineage. And so I'm curious, because I imagine this is a topic that has come up, especially with Four Visions, and we're now taking, it could be Hapé or Mambe or any of these other sort of sacred medicines and bringing them into the West. How do you, both as a psychedelic practitioner, but also as an entrepreneur, how do you sort of navigate that? I almost would call it like a minefield at times, right? How do you navigate that minefield of cultural appropriation, staying in integrity and really staying committed to the work that you are choosing to do and that you get to do in this lifetime?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to the conversation. It's really important. And yeah, the minefield analogy is spot on, because sometimes it feels like it's a dance, right? And it's been such an incredible study and investigation over the years, and a constant checking in over the process, and consulting my elders and the wisdom keepers who are in alliance with us, and asking for guidance in moments when guidance has been needed. And I always like to go back to what my teacher says, because he gets asked that question all the time. And it's interesting because Taita Juanito, he has a very fascinating journey, and he even received backlash from his own community and tribe at times for choosing to leave the jungle and share the medicines of his culture, and received a lot of criticism from his own people for doing that. But he always has spoken very clearly about what this is about. And I really like to be guided by this message. And the message is that we are at a pivotal moment in humanity's evolution where the collective consciousness is in deep, deep need for the wisdom of the plants. And that if we are going to save our species and save the earth and exist for the next 7 generations to come, we absolutely 100% need the medicines of the earth to save us and to help us to remember. And so for him, his path has always been very clear because he has always known in his heart so profoundly this truth. And so anytime the judgment has come, it's always been he's always been able to overcome it and has counseled us to do the same, knowing that we are in alignment and that we are doing this from a place of service and truly desiring to help other people have access to these healing tools. Now, that being said, for him as an Indigenous man to have this perspective, it's a lot different than for me as a white female entrepreneur, and that's very real. And so I've had to grapple with, the everything from imposter syndrome to self-doubt to, going down the rabbit hole of all of the critics and the haters and all of the, misconceptions and misunderstandings of what we as a brand are doing and who we are, because at the end of the day, no one really knows better than me as the person who runs this organization if we're in integrity or not, right? And so for me, I've always really been guided, been able to evaluate it by a few really key elements. Number one, how our relationships are with our wisdom keepers and our Indigenous partners, what they have to say about the work that we're doing, what they think about us and our partnership. Number two, the people that we're helping and our customers and our community, and seeing how these medicines have really helped them and really been really powerful access points into their healing journey. And number three, our impact with specifically, the tribes and our giving back model, which, if we have time, I'd love to talk more about because, to date, we have been able to, beyond just our commerce model, give in donations over $1 million back to the Amazon rainforest through, straight donations from our proceeds. And so our business model has allowed us to, be a player, a real, impactful player at the table when it comes to saving the rainforest and saving and supporting the traditions in protecting themselves. We don't by any means see ourselves as saviors or anything like that. But through this model, they are able to help us direct these funds to the initiatives and the projects that they themselves have decided are the most important and the highest priorities for them and in their cultures and their development within their communities. So this for us is kind of the 3 guidelines that have really allowed us to evaluate our integrity throughout the journey. And when it comes to cultural appropriation, I think, the difference between cultural appropriation and, reciprocal sharing is really quite clear, when we are saying that this is ours and we are claiming that this is coming from us or that we own it, that's where, the danger lies. And when we really focus on this sharing, this exchange, this upliftment, this amplification of both tradition and the plants themselves, and really always remain in service to our initial mission and the original reason why we began this work, we really can just walk firmer and firmer in the knowing that we are in right relationship. And so that's really how we dealt with, the attacks or criticisms of cultural appropriation. And of course, there will always be people who, look at our brand and immediately jump to that conclusion. But anyone who takes the time to really investigate what we're doing, how we do it, and how our business model is organized will clearly see that this is not cultural appropriation. And so that's, been kind of the journey for us with that. And it's a very beautiful study and really actually, kind of also where the crossroads of spiritual entrepreneurship start for me, because that's really been an area where I've had to really grow emotionally and spiritually to be able to hold and balance, the misinterpretations of the work that we're doing and grow in my capacity as a leader of this organization to continue to walk forward with clarity and firmness. And so, there's so many examples of where I've been asked to step up, and my spiritual path has directly interceded with my entrepreneurial journey. And so it's a really beautiful thing that, at first I thought they were separate, and I tried to kind of compartmentalize. Okay, I got to finish all my 4 visions work up, and then I'm going on retreat. And then I realized, a few years ago, whatever, like, okay, no, they're one and the same, and how I get to weave it, all of the downloads, all of the understanding, all of my studies with the way that I show up, the way that I guide this platform, the way that I get to be in service to the medicines, and it's brought me so much love and devotion to this work. And I found myself in e-commerce. Like, who would have thought? I'm like a college dropout with absolutely no marketing background, and here I am, running a successful e-commerce platform, having to learn a lot of skills that, in my first years on the spiritual path as like kind of a young hippie slash like plant medicine drinker, I was like rejecting so hardcore, the world of money and, business, right? And here I am like loving it and fully embracing it as this, pathway for impact and a pathway to service in a really big way. And so I'm really grateful for all of the challenges that have allowed me to encounter these different areas of stickiness and really understand myself and understand all of these really important things that we're talking about right now that are at the crux of the discussion of plant medicine and psychedelics that need to be understood, that need to be talked about, And so it's a really beautiful thing to see how they weave together the spiritual and the mundane, or the spiritual and the grounded hustle.
Yeah, there's just some beautiful reflections. I think as you were talking, one of my prayers with Third Wave over the last decade has been, as I continue to engage in this path, for lack of a better term, of spiritual awareness, spiritual growth. My prayer has always been to sort of be held accountable, or to sort of play at the highest levels with the highest level of integrity, right? And that requires, I don't know if vigilance is the right word, but it requires a level of attention and awareness and capacity to stay anchored and rooted in sort of the values and the mission and the truth of what inspired this, while still remaining open to the fact that we will never have everything figured out. And the fact that we are, people from the West who are doing our best to amplify this in whichever way we do, we also will never come from that same anchoring and rooting as a Taita Wanito, or as a Shipibo Curandera, or as a, Bwiti, shaman or chief or whatever that might look like. And that's okay, because, this sense of perfection is impossible. I think what matters most is the ability to remain humble and in this sort of lane of beginner's mind. That and this is again, this is why I think it is so critical that any entrepreneur who is choosing to engage with this type of work does have their own personal practice, because there's an intelligence in these medicines that I think, if we are open to it, can provide the guidance and the service. And I will say, it's not just the medicines, it's, as you mentioned, also the wisdom holders or the wisdom keepers or the elders and the teachers. We need both of those aspects to do this work in a way that's both integrous and supportive of, the larger unfolding of life in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're also learning from us too. I just kind of want to put that out there. And I've had such an incredible honor of like really having deep friendships with many indigenous people over the years. And it's very cool to see, how they are receiving from us in ways that maybe we aren't even aware too. And for example, like Taita, when I first met him, he didn't eat healthy, and he didn't even know what meditation was or yoga. And he laughs about it, and he tells the story because the first time he came to Costa Rica, like 12, 15 years ago, like he saw all these, Westerners practicing these things, and he started learning about them. And now, he eats super healthy. He only eats organic food, and he's learning more about these things too. And so, he also talks about that as well, about the way in which, that exchange, when it's done with, joy and love and friendship, that's kind of like the basis, is like, can we be in this together, in this exploration, in this development? Then it can be something really magical and really beautiful and inspiring. So yeah, that's kind of the fun part of it all.
So the final question that I have for you is a little bit, I would think of it as a fun question. I'm on the website right now, fourvisions.com. It's really beautifully done now that I'm, on it and reviewing it. But I'm curious, like, what are some of the things? I know there's Hapé and Ambil and Dieta plant, Sananga, but there's Tepes and Curapes, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but maybe you can correct me. And I'm curious, sort of, what are maybe some of the plants in particular that you provide that maybe a lot of people in the West aren't as aware of? Like, what are maybe some things that, as folks listen to this, they could potentially explore and open up to, that Four Visions provides?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are most well known for our sourcing of really high quality hapé. And for those who do not know what hapé is, it's a traditional shamanic snuff with organic wildcrafted tobacco and the ashes of different barks, seeds, leaves from various medicinal trees in the Brazilian Amazon. And so we are most known for our hapé, and we have over 20 varieties and all the applicators to begin a hapé practice and to invite that plant ally into your altar and to work with that medicine. But like you said, we have many, many other incredible tools, and many of the plants we source are available in multiple formats. So whether it be in botanical tincture or in dried loose leaf, with which you can make plant baths or drink and prepare herbal teas or decoctions to take internally, and then as well to treat. To make into salves or poultices, or to place upon the body externally. So we really provide a lot of different access points to study plants. And our goal is for people to be able to form relationships with these different plant allies by being able to connect with them in various ways. And so some of the plants that we source that perhaps you might not be familiar with are very rare Amazonian herbs, seeds, flowers, and leaves that have really profound uses and can support in a variety of ways. So we do have Bobinsana, which is a very powerful healer plant that works on the heart. It's a really powerful ally for working with themes of inner child healing, of past trauma, abuse, grief, closing of cycles, It can also be utilized for lucid dreaming, for dream studies, for expansion of consciousness, and working with the non-waking world. And we provide that in the tea form. We have it in a tincture as well as in a hapé. And so the bobinsana is one of our really special plant allies that we source. We also have chuchuwasi, which is another master plant ally from the Amazon. And chuchuwasi has many, many healing benefits. It's known as the warrior's tree. So it's really about strengthening vitality, spiritual and physical strength. And we source the bark as well as in a tincture format. And we really want to provide the opportunity for people if they want to do like at-home diets or spiritual containers where you are working intensively with one plant for a period of time. We really support people in doing this because this is like the traditional way of working with these plants, that you do a treatment or like a protocol with any particular plant. So instead of bouncing around and trying a bunch of different things, we really encourage people to tune in and to let themselves kind of connect with a plant ally and then learn about the plant ally and really form a relationship with it so that you can start to receive the teachings and the healings from that particular plant. Some of the other medicines that we have are the ambisacha Yahé microdose tincture. So this is our Yahé vine tincture distilled in alcohol. It's just vine, and so it's very beautiful way to connect with the essence of the ayahuasca. It can be really supportive for integration both before ceremony and after ceremony, and again, really just grounding in the teachings. And really, this whole product line, our apothecary, developed by really kind of tuning in and studying, like for primarily, originally we really developed this platform for people who walk the plant medicine path. Now we're kind of expanding a little bit more for people who maybe aren't so familiar with master plants and ceremonial plants. But the idea originally was to like, what would I want in my plant toolkit, as a plant medicine practitioner? Like, what are the tools that I want? And so we really built it out like that. And we have, medicines for all different types of emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, study, healing, ailments, anything really. We can work with the plants in so many different ways. So that's kind of, a brief kind of introduction, but definitely, if you're listening, go explore because there's a lot there. And, little by little, we're getting better at organizing and developing all of the information. It is a lot, and it's always a journey learning how to bridge those worlds. But really, there's something for everyone in our apothecary.
Yeah, and I was hoping there'd be Mambe, but I don't think you can legally sell Mambe yet in the States. Do you want to tell our listeners briefly just what Mambe is and maybe what it means to you, and then we can wrap?
Sure, yeah. The Mambe and the ambil are two of my closest plant allies and teachers, and these medicines come from the Watoto tribe of the Amazon, the Colombian Amazon. And the Mambe is a mixture of two plants. It's the coca leaf, and it's another plant called guarumo, which is a big towering canopy tree that grows in the Amazon rainforest. And we actually sell that leaf dried for teas and baths. And the guarumo is known for its revitalizing properties. It regrows itself really fast, so it has those replenishing elements. And so the Mambe is a combination of those two plants. And the ambil is a tobacco paste, which has the tobacco, and then it has a special palm salt that's added to activate it. And so the archetype of the Mambe and the ambil is the divine masculine and the feminine. The father tobacco and the mama coca, and together they bring us so many teachings about balance, harmony, integration of this sacred duality within our own beings. And traditionally for the Watoto people, they work with these medicines to invoke the sweet word, which I really love, and to really call forth this communication from the heart and from this place of authenticity. And so these medicines are often taken within the context of sharing of speaking, whether it be in like a charla, a sacred talk, or in a consultation between, a medicine practitioner and a patient, or an interview like this, because it really allows the practitioner to tap into this place of sweetness and authenticity and connect with that channel of nature and essence. And so, yes, we do not sell the Mambe. We do sell the Ambil. We're out of stock right now, but we should be getting some more in a few weeks. And these medicines are really special. And if someone feels called to experience them, we invite you. You can come visit us in Colombia, and we can share the Mambe with you there.
Beautiful. Well, Mariah, I'm just so grateful that you took the time today to join us. The work that you've done and continue to do through Four Visions as an entrepreneur, but also as a medicine woman. We didn't even get a chance to talk about motherhood. That might have to be a whole nother episode. But it was really a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. And just thank you for all the work that you're doing and the minefields that you're navigating and the way that you're bringing this medicine to so many people in the West, and for the integrity that you're doing it with. It's a real pleasure to see. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The psychedelic space is evolving every day, and we have a ton of amazing content that's coming out, and subscribing is the best way to keep up to date with all of that great content.